Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is BDF 44. I haven't gotten out of bed yet because it's my day off again. So I just felt like enjoying this lay down session that I have right now. But everything online is basically talking about Miss Jefferson's murder. I haven't said her name properly yet. I think it's Atatiana. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Everything online pretty much is about that situation in my timeline. So I made a video touching in on how I felt about that, and then I went into some other things. But I know a little more about what happened. And basically, to me, honestly, after studying the very little footage that they've given us, police officer showed up to the scene. A black man called the police to basically have a wellness check for his neighbor. He went over to her house and saw that all the doors were open, the lights were on, and he didn't see any signs of movement. So he was very concerned for her, and he wanted not to take it upon himself to go on in there, and if there was some danger, if there was something that he didn't want to see, he'd rather leave it up to authorities. He's an older guy, so in the world that he's from, maybe that makes sense, although I can't imagine that it did, honestly. In a perfect world, there's absolutely nothing wrong with what he did. I have to express that because, you want to call the cops to handle certain situations rather than take them upon your own hands, because quite frankly, they will throw you in jail for taking things upon your own hands. Vigilantism is illegal. So if he were to pull his gun out, and if he saw something go down in that house and he pulled his gun out, they're definitely going to hit him with murder. If he tries to save her life in any way or something like that, there ain't going to be no justification for what he would have done if there would have been danger in her home. So calling the cops in a perfect world under the lines of the law is the only way to go. So I got to express that by saying I don't want people to take what I'm saying as if he literally did something wrong. Now, I'm talking about because of the circumstances for which he found himself, and if ultimately what cost Miss Jefferson her life. If you're a black person, or if you're a person of color, particularly living in a world, and what I mean by a world, an environment where the cops are predominantly white, and we have to accept the fact that we may not be safe, and the people that we may want to protect may not be safe when we do so. I've heard of situations where people have called the cops before. This is not new, but they call the cops on a drunk uncle or a mentally challenged, irate family member, or a domestic dispute, and somebody ends up getting killed by the cops. All you wanted was somebody to come through and make the situation better. Come through and subdue the person, or take them away if they've become a threat. You never intended for them to lose their life. But what we have to understand is that cops are trained to shoot center mass when they shoot. And a lot of police officers, for whatever reason, I can't make any sense of it, can't step outside of their training when they're on duty. They can't assess a situation properly a lot of times to say, okay, this doesn't require me to shoot. This doesn't require me to use the training. Obviously, I've never been trained as a police officer, other than security training, which let me understand exactly how they are trained to shoot, because I was trained to shoot that way myself. But in understanding that, I know that there are aspects of being a police officer that make it so that they have to expect extreme threats at all times. So that may be why they may be quicker to do certain things, or may be less likely to take their time in assessing a situation. It's better be safe than sorry, protect the man next to you, that kind of thing. I do understand that. They're dealing with the worst of the worst all day long if they're doing their jobs properly. But the problem is you're also dealing with the public. And just like in regards to soldiers coming back from war, having to assimilate back into society, we need our police officers to also be able to do the same thing in regards to assessing situations and not coming to our homes with the intent of expressing their training in every and all situations. If you're doing a wellness check, then you're supposed to knock on the door and make yourself known. Assess a situation. If the doors are open, you come inside. You can have your gun drawn if that's what it is. If it's probably smart for you to have your gun drawn. But be prepared for the situation to go one way or another, not just completely one way. And I think that's what went wrong. If I'm looking at this at face value, I'm not looking at this as face value, because this took place in Texas, miles away from where Botham Jean was shot. And then after the Botham Jean situation went down, then suddenly the main witness in Botham Jean's murder is shot down, like the day after he testifies. And now a couple weeks later, another black person is shot in their home. I just feel like this stuff is there's a conspiracy to look at here. There's something to look at. And I'll tell you this also. After studying the film of Miss Jefferson's murder, I am of the mindset that the police officer who did the shooting was on some type of drug. I look at it. I've watched the body mannerisms of people who have been on drugs all my life. I read people's body language. It's just something I've done without even really understanding that I do it. But one thing that's consistent with people who are on certain types of drugs is a ticking motion. Usually people who are not drugged, or people who are on downers, usually either move slowly or they kind of buzz. But people who are on uppers, they tick. It's almost like they're pop locking or doing the robot ever so slightly. And I noticed stuff like that, especially people who are tweaking. This dude's mannerisms when he was holding the flashlight walking in her backyard showed me that he had been tweaking. And that would explain why she had literally no time to put her hands up. 0.4 seconds to be exact between his command and his fire of the shot. Now, we didn't get to see any more of the footage from his body cam because they wanted to respect the integrity of what took place, which was not showing her down. But to be completely honest, I would like to see that, because it would help me further study what his motions were and his movements were. I do believe that man was on some type of drug. Now, I'm not saying that it was legal or illegal, because a lot of times some of the drugs that these people are on are drugs that help them cope with their mental illness and things that are given over the counter. So he might have been off of something that was prescribed to him for something personal, but he also may have been off of something illegal. He may have been off cocaine or some type of upper of that nature. But I believe, after watching the video 160 times, exaggerating of course, that this man was high when he was going in her backyard, and that would explain why he didn't give her any time to put her hands up after yelling that command. I do believe at this point that African Americans, people of color, especially if you live in rural neighborhoods, though I don't believe she did, or bad neighborhoods is a better way to describe what I'm saying, if rural is not the right word. If you live in a bad neighborhood, you probably need to not call the cops. If you live in an open carry state, you should have your gun, but don't keep it out. Because one of the things that they've said is that her gun was visible when you looked through the window, and that's why he pulled the trigger. Did she have a gun in her hand? No. What am I sure that gun was actually there, or that was doctored up in some way? Can't be sure. Don't know. Does seem quite convenient. Gives him an out for sure. But at the end of the day, she was in there playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew that she was babysitting. He witnessed her lose her life. He was in there for the aftermath of that situation. I'm just glad he wasn't the one that was shot. Though I am very sad that Mr. Jefferson was shot. I think that cop would have shot anybody who was moving, quite honestly. We're in a space right now, people of color, where we have to be honest with ourselves about where we are. We are not safe in the presence of police officers until further notice. Police reform must be a priority for whoever you vote for. I know we have a lot of issues, more than I am aware of for sure, but something that is being, put in our faces is this, and it has been in our faces for years and years and years, decades of police being trained improperly and or being incapable of handling the pressures of the duties that they are faced with. For whatever reasons, I believe, and I'll tell you something else before I move into what I believe. I never said this on camera, but I'll say it now. My mother was a police officer in the 70s in San Francisco, in the Bay Area actually, Oakland to be exact. She told me something that had stuck with me all my life, helped me understand something. My mother said that she, when interviewing for the job, was asked what type of mercy she would have for people who had done some type of heinous crime. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I want to say like child molestation, something of that nature. And she said that she answered the question in such a way that she knew she wouldn't get the job. She said she would have no mercy or something. She said she wouldn't be partial or something of that nature. She told me that she was all but certain that they wouldn't give her the job because of how insane her answer actually was. And they hired her. That gave me a peek into exactly what they're looking for, or at least what they were looking for in Oakland at the time. They want you to be imbalanced mentally. They want you to be wired such a way so that you will have the gall to pull the trigger. They want you to be a little crazy is basically what I'm saying to you. They want you to be slightly off so that when you're faced with those situations, you don't clam up. So that if you're faced with certain issues, you'll be wired to do what you need to do. So I want everybody to know clearly what I'm saying to you. They're not really, from what I'm assessing through what my mother told me and from what I'm seeing, they're not looking for sane, stable-minded individuals to be police officers. They don't want kind-hearted, slow-to-act spirits wearing badges. They want you to be somewhat off, trigger-happy, insane. Do you understand what I'm saying to y'all? So when you are applying to be a police officer and you're looking over at your the guy next to you and the lady next to you, and you're looking at your bosses and you're riding for the badge, just remember they picked all of y'all for reasons that may not be as clear as they should be to the rest of us. And they're looking for things that maybe the normal, regular employer of a business may not be looking for. Now, getting into what I believe. I believe that there should be a emphasis, particularly in our community, for police reform. When I say our community, I mean people of color and people who have, circumstances and occurrences such as these in their communities. You have got to not vote for anybody who's not taking on the responsibility of police reform. It is important that their training be changed, that the way that they choose these officers be changed, and it's incumbent upon us as voters to put the pressure on them to do so. It's incumbent upon us as consumers to put the pressure on corporations to assure that they're doing their part to put pressure on the voters, on those in power, to do the things that we need done for our communities. You have to affect their money and you have to affect their power. That is the only way that you're going to get the change that you're looking for. If you address these situations as a case-by-case situation, every case will take place over and over again. You can't pick the leaves in a situation like this. You gotta dig the root out. You gotta get into the ground and dig the root out. You have to. And the only way to really affect them in a way that gives you leverage is through the voting system and through how you use your dollars. That's the only way. You have to affect their bottom line because this is a business at the end of the day. So if you want change, attack their pockets. Attach your feelings to those who you spend money with so that they will put the pressure on others to make the changes. They can. This is a corporate world that you live in. All it takes is for a certain corporation to lose a lot of money in the name of something, and they will put pressure on the lobbyists. They will put pressure on the politicians. They will put pressure on the different lawmakers to assure that whoever is angry with them is no longer, so that their money can start flowing the way it needs to go. That's how you affect anything in this world, particularly in this white America that we live in. Affect that dollar, man. Tell so and so that you ain't gonna buy none of their stuff until they stand up for what you believe in. You're gonna boycott them all the way until they do what it is that you feel is important, because they affect change. Your vote matters. Your dollar matters. Especially in the black community, we gotta understand. Look at what Tyler Perry was able to accomplish in Atlanta this week. 330 acres. Why? From the black dollar. The black dollar bought him that. He was able to touch our hearts and give us what we needed over time from him, and in turn, we paid him. And now he was able to do this, which creates a lot of jobs for others and all of that good stuff. That came from the black dollar. We have more power than they want us to think. Look at the NFL hiring Jay-Z trying to get right with us. They thought poo-pooing on us and telling us that we didn't have a voice was good for them. Then it affected their bottom dollar. Now they pulling out all the stops. Albeit the wrong way, obviously. But they're doing what they know how to do. Why? Because they feel they have to. They know they have to. You matter, black people. Be mindful where you put your money. Be mindful who you give your votes to. And make sure that police reform is on the top of your list of things that they need to address. And then you'll see some changes. Then you'll see more stable police officers with better training out there. Affect that money. Anyway, that's what I got for y'all, man. This is BDF 44. A lot of times I'll talk about the Lakers and stuff like that, but there's so much real stuff going on, and I'm so aware of it. I'm sober right now. And all this is going on, so I feel like I got to speak on some real stuff. I don't want to play around. There's real stuff going on out there. It's more than just entertainment and fun for our pastimes. People are losing their lives, and hell, I could be next. You could be next. And I said in the other video, but I have to say it now. We're getting fed up, man. Violence will be the next step that we take. That's what it is, man. I'm not talking from myself. I'm not saying, I'm trying to speak against this. I don't want it to happen, but I'm listening. People are not tired anymore. They're arrested. No pun intended. They are rested. Now, they're powered up. Now the people are powered up. Now we're just looking for ways to defend ourselves from what we perceive as threats. It's no longer about we want to talk, we want to complain, we want to kneel. People are talking about picking up arms so that if a cop come to our house, we shoot him first. I'm telling you. I'm not warning anybody. I'm preparing you. If we don't get change, you're going to see civil unrest. We're not going to keep losing people like this. We're not going to keep enduring injustice on a racial level, on a social level, of any kind. I can see it coming. People are not even tired anymore. They're just getting ready. So for those who think they can sweep this under the rug, it'll be your kids that deal with the consequences of what I'm talking about. You'll be dead and gone, and our kids will be shooting at your kids for no reason. Why? Because of reasons that took place now. And the scary part is, a lot of them will be so far removed from the injustices that actually took place, they won't even know why they're doing it. They'll just be doing it. Sort of like gang violence right now. These conflicts that started the gang violence, a lot of people don't even know what they're about. They're just shooting because it's in their nature to shoot. And that's the kind of stuff we're going to be dealing with on a racial level if some of these injustices don't stop. On a people to police level, if some of these things don't stop. You have never seen how ugly it can get. So please, understand why you should care. This is not minor. That's all I got, man. BDF 44. One love. I hope y'all believe in love, because if you don't, we're going to tear up our own world with these little bitty chinks in our armor. Little bitty things that are starting to break us away from one another. And maybe it's done purposely for that reason. Some want chaos and anarchy. I personally want peace. So with that being said, peace.